So one of my questions I wanted to ask you, it's let's say the Pistons keep the 5th pick, hypothetically.
Okay. Sure.
Who are some prospects at 5 that fans should expect the Pistons to target with that 5th overall pick?
So here's the frustrating thing, right? We've spent 50 minutes talking about a number 2 option, a guy that really gets buckets and all of these things. And I mentioned Ron Holland earlier. He's probably the only one, and there's real downside with Ron Holland. People will throw out Hamidou Diallo as a floor for Ron Holland, and they're not wrong. They are not wrong. I think Ron Holland is a real high upside, swing for the fences type guy, but there's a chance it doesn't hit. And I don't know that his workouts have been great. So I still think Risacher is the guy that you hope somehow falls to 5. And people don't like that. And I get it because he's going to fall right into what we just talked about in terms of being a role player. He is a 3-and-D role player, but he's 6'9", 6'10". I think he can really shoot it. I think he can really defend. I think that makes a lot of sense on this roster. And then you go fill the role we're talking about as a bucket getter with the $65 million in free agency and all of that. So he's a guy, I don't think he's going to be there though, for what it's worth. So I did a recent thing over on my Substack where I asked people to give me their top 5 Pistons big board without Alex Sarr and Zachary Risacher. And you know who ended up won by a landslide was the first guy in your graphic right there, Reed Shepherd. I was shocked. I knew he'd be high. I didn't think he would win it going away.
You know, like if you would have done that a month ago, I guarantee you it would have been a different outcome. But
probably Matas. You think it would have been Matas?
I think so. I think when I talk to a lot of Pistons fans, it's like Matas or bust right now.
Yeah.
I think there are some people. There's like people in the Cody Williams hive. There's people in the Dalton Connect, Klingon, even TJ Solong. I mean, there's a lot of prospects that could be there at 5, and it scares the crap out of me.
So the next 3 were Klingon, Connect, and Matas Buzelis. So Shepherd, and the pitch with Reed Shepherd, right, is ultimate floor spacer, can take some secondary ball handling. I think he's better off the ball defensively, even though he does get a little bit ball watchy at times. I think he might struggle at the point of attack a little bit, which I would rather have someone that does that a little better next to Cade, but it is what it is there. So I was surprised. Klingon was actually first of the Pistons fans I asked. He was first. So for those that don't know what I'm referencing here, I broke it down into Pistons fans, NBA draft scouts, and then general content creators. And he won the Pistons fan vote. This was shocking to me that he was first with Pistons fans. And I don't know if that just means people are a little bit lower on Jalen Duren or what it was, but I was really surprised by that one.
I'm pulling mine up because I know I did not have Klingon in my top 5.
Yeah. No,
I did not. I had Holland, Reed Shepherd, Dalton Connect, Matas Buzelis, and I went spicy and I put Khalil Ware.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Khalil Ware's, he's a really interesting, his archetype fits the modern NBA if all of those things hit. Connects was really interesting because he got only 2 first place votes, but the second least no votes. So out of 40 ballots I collected, Shepherd had the most where he wasn't in the top 5 at all. Dalton Connect was actually second. It's just Connect got a ton of 3rd and 4th place votes and not very many 1st and 2nd, which to me meant Pistons fans like the idea of Dalton Connect, just not at number 5.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends how the draft order goes.
Yes.
Like we did a mock draft. I think Bleacher Report put out their mock draft and they had Matas at 4 and they had Cody Williams at 5.
Okay.
Saying that like the Spurs and the Pistons are real threats to draft him as a top 4 to 5. I guess that was like what their intel told them, which I like the idea of Cody Williams. I just question the shooting volume. That's my biggest concern because when you're only shooting maybe an attempt and a half and you're shooting 41%, like what does it look like when you're shooting maybe 5-6 times a game versus like 1.5 times a game?
1.5 attempts a game. He was 1.7. That's borderline non-shooter territory, right? No matter what percentage you're shooting it at, teams are going to go, okay, shoot it 7 times tonight and let's see how it goes. Now, the shot doesn't look broke by any means, and so hopefully he can increase the thing with Cody is he has real touch around the rim. Like he probably has the best touch of the guys in the top 10 or whatever, maybe in the entire class. And if he fills out his body, if I could talk to somebody that said, no, his frame, the way he'll fill out his body, he's just skinny right now, I would feel a lot better about him. There was a aggressive mentality that kind of I didn't love with him. Me and Sam's most recent mock, we actually executed a trade, which moved the Pistons back to 8. San Antonio traded up. I thought it was a good trade for Detroit. I had Spurs people reach out to me and thought that they didn't like what San Antonio gave up to move up there. But what it did was it was a future protected first round pick, top 7. So maybe it needed to be top 10 or top 12 protected or something like that. But it gave Detroit a future first to recoup some of that with that pick that's in New York, traded back to 8 and still got Dalton Knecht at number 8.
I mean, yeah, if you can get assets and still get a guy that can come in right away, like a Knecht, which I think Knecht is the most NBA ready guy that is talked in the NBA draft lottery. I think right now he could average 10 to 12 points in the NBA. It's just how good he is offensively.
And I think the thing with Knecht is a lot of people talk about him just as a floor spacer, which I think he will do. There's a chance he's a overall bucket getter. There's a chance Dalton Knecht may go average 20 points a game in his career. Now, of course, there's a chance he doesn't, but this is a guy in the SEC who was the entire offense some games and would just go crazy. And so I think there's a chance he's a real big time scorer from 2 levels, maybe even 3 levels, because he's more athletic than what you would guess. But I think the floor is he's at least a really good floor spacer. The question is on the defensive end, right? He doesn't answer a lot of these defensive questions, but what I continue to say is most of these guys aren't going to solve all of the issues. So we've talked about a few things throughout this episode, right? They need a second bucket getter, they need floor spacing, and they need defense. That guy is not in this draft. He is nowhere to be found in this draft. You might get lucky to get 2 of those things. I think you would with Reese Shea, a guy that spaces the floor and plays defense. A lot of them, it may just be 1. And that's, again, why you have to play out the rest of the offseason to answer some of the other questions.
Yeah, when I look at Knecht, and I know this is way off topic, I see a lot of Tyler Hero.
Okay, I've seen that comp as well.
When I watch him, he reminds me a lot of Tyler Hero. And if you can go watch some of Tyler Hero's high school stuff, that kid was just so athletic. He's dropping 30 points a game in high school. That's the same type of vibe I get with Knecht. And I know some people look at the age, which I've never been a proponent of. Don't draft him because he's 22, 23. If he can play, he can play. I really don't care.
My thing with the age is it just has to be a part of the evaluation. It doesn't mean you don't draft a kid. You just have to have the context of, hey, this 23-year-old has had literally 5 more years to develop his body. How many days is that? 1,800 days or something like that?
Yeah.
They've had that many days, that many workouts, that many training sessions to get better at the game of basketball. That matters. He's had that many more days than Zachary Reese to work on his jump shot, to fill out his body, all of those things. It has to be taken into account. Now, one thing with Knecht is his path to this is vastly different than a lot of guys in terms of going JUCO, low-level Division I before Tennessee. So I don't even compare him. I always use Kevin McCullough whenever I do this. Kevin McCullough has 6 years of high-level Division I basketball training, nutrition, strength training, coaching, all of those things. Knecht doesn't even have that. So I do think compared to other 23-year-olds in this draft or any draft, I do give him a little bit more space for potential growth because of that. But again, you can't compare his body of work and truly just his body to other guys because there's 5 years of development compared to a lot of the guys we're talking about.
I know this is such a, I can go a lot of different ways with this topic, but I do want to kind of circle back to Modest because I think he's a player that a lot of Pistons talk about. And they talk about it not so much as basketball, presence, more of age and stuff. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But he's not even my favorite G League Ignite prospect. Tyler Smith is.
Yeah.
I question the shooting. I know he shot 40% from 3 in high school, but that's high school. I covered like a lot of my job was covering G League games. So I got to see a lot of Ron Holland. I got to see a lot of Montes Pizelis. My biggest thing with him is I don't know if that 3-point shot will translate at the next level in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no idea. He's been one of my hardest evaluations because of that. If he could shoot, if I really believed in the jumper, he would be one of my favorite prospects because I think he's a forward. So I think he's a 4. He'll have to fill out his body and his physicality, as we've talked about. A lot of these guys do. I think he weak side rim protects. I think he can play as a low man. I think he's better defensively in general than what people would think initially. I think as a 4-man, he is a plus passer and dribbler. Not a great, but he's a plus. And I'm talking about, I continue to mention him as a 4-man and not a wing, not a 3. So think the Jeremy Grant type of role, not comparing the players. I'm just saying that type of role, like a 4-man that maybe moonlights as a 3 sometimes. But he's got to be able to shoot it. And I'm with you. I don't know that he does. I have real questions.
Yeah, I mean, getting to cover like a lot of G League games. So I got to watch like probably a bulk of 90% of the Ignite games.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, like he's a nice prospect. I see him more as a point forward at the next level.
Okay.
I think, he can play the power forward. I think his passing is very underrated. I think he's a good passer. But the shot is where I'm like, I don't know. I think he shot like 27, maybe 25% from 3 in the Ignite.
I think his percentage for all the questions around Ron Holland shooting, I believe that Montas actually shoots. So Montas shot 26% on 3.4, and Ron Holland shot it did end up less, 24% on 3.3. But I mean, people really question Ron Holland shooting, and it was only a couple percentage points less than Montas.
I look at Ron Holland's like jump shot. I think it's more to work with than a Montas.
I think Ron Holland's jumper looks like it could be something that develops someday. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm a little bit higher on a Ron Holland than I would be a Montas, just for the fact that like I have so many questions. It's not just the jump shot; it's the frame too. This is it's a really skinny kid. Like, can he add weight at the next level? You never really know. But I mean, you see skinny guys like Chet Holmgren and Kevin Durant just own people, but you never really know. But
Chet has to be an outlier because his practical strength compared to what it just looks like, the difference between those two things is insane. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, if he bulked up to like 250, he would just be unguardable. Like, it's insane.